Welcome in. As always, I'm your good friend and host, Ben, and welcome to the luxurious youth room and another episode of STYGIES Live. Yes, we're here, we're back. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. So let's talk about Jesus. Here is today's question. Have you ever wondered what it would look like to have a faith that is not shaken, no matter what happens around you? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live that way? To just not be moved by anything, to not have friends that push you in one certain direction, to not have doubts as you sit at night and thoughts just kind of go on. Have you ever wondered what it really would be like to have a faith that just doesn't get moved, doesn't get shaken, no matter what happens? This week, we are beginning our look into becoming resilient, passionate disciples that are not shaped by the world that they live in, but are shaped by the God that they serve. So, quick recap as we talked about last week what it means to live as an exile in digital Babylon. So, an exile is a person, once again, who doesn't live in their home. They live somewhere else, have been taken somewhere else. And digital Babylon is what we're calling this new home that we have in America. It's a really fast-paced, changing culture that sees God as one option of many, and oftentimes not the best option in the bunch. So, what makes a resilient disciple? What makes a disciple that has faith no matter what gets thrown at them? This week, we're talking about step 1. Jesus is your obsession. Everything in your life is about Jesus. And if you ain't getting enough Jesus, then you're going to fight until you get enough Jesus. So, an episode, time to do a little trivia. What percentage of people ages 16 to 24 in America, currently living today, consider themselves to be a part of the Christian religion? What would you think? Just judging by the people that you know, that's your age range, 16 to 24, what percentage of people do you think consider themselves to be a Christian? Well, the answer is 67%. Yeah, that's right. 2/3 of the people your age living in America consider themselves to be Christian. Now, does that seem a little high to you? Is that interesting, huh? And we talk on and on and on and on and on about, oh, Christianity, it's dying in the States. Its faith is just going away. We're living in a post-Christian world. And yet, but 2/3 of people your age, when asked on a survey what religion they preferred, say they're Christian. Okay, interesting. I mean, come on. We go to a church that has grown by 400 people over the last 5 years. But this survey, as it continued to go and dig deeper into faith, so these people that said, yes, 2/3, I'm a Christian. Christian faith is the faith that I live, that I have. They started to ask some more questions, some more details to get to know those people a little bit more on the faith side. And they found some very interesting things. Because the next question is, do you believe that living in a relationship with Jesus is the only way to find fulfillment in life? So out of that 2/3 of Christians, what percentage of that people do you think said, yes, I believe living in a relationship with Jesus is the way to get full fulfillment in life? Only 54% of the Christians agreed with that. The next question was, does your relationship with Jesus bring you joy and satisfaction? Only 56% of Christians agreed with that. Then, following Jesus shapes my whole life, body, soul, heart, and mind. 53% agreed with that one. Then, my relationship with Jesus impacts the way I live every day. Only 55% of people could agree with that one. So out of that 2/3, it's somewhere between like 52, 56% of them really live as people who look at Jesus as their obsession, as their absolute obsession, something they have to have. And the truth is, some claim Christianity, but they don't follow Jesus. Now, from time to time, we all fall in that category. But to make it a habit over and over again and say, yeah, sure, I'm a Christian, but then again, nothing in my life can really tell you that way. It's possible to claim God, but not be a disciple of Jesus. In fact, a bunch of people do this. But that's not what Jesus is about. That's not what faith is about. And that's not a faith that's resilient. That's not living like an exile. That's just becoming like everyone around you. That's just falling into place, fitting into the line, never living up to your true potential, not being yourself. It's the opposite of having an obsession with Jesus. Because there's millions and millions of people our age all around us that have a deep faith, that will not quit, that won't give up, that will thrive no matter their circumstances. Now, a great example of this comes from the book of Daniel. So the book of Daniel takes place during a really, really weird time. So imagine one day you're at home, it's during quarantine, your whole family's at home, you're chilling, there's a knock on the front door, and when you go to answer the door, there's a dude there in a uniform, military stuff, and there's a plane in your like driveway, and you're like, what? Like, why is this plane just chilling out in front of my house? Like, when did a plane get here? And you see all these people being led onto the plane, and soon enough, boom, just like that, your whole family's rounded up. You guys are like handcuffed all together, and you're led onto the plane, just leaving home. All of a sudden, the plane takes off, you fly, you don't really know how far you're going, who has taken you, where you're going. Like, this is just really weird. Well, the plane eventually comes down, it lands, and you get out, and the person there says, hello, welcome to Cairo, Egypt, your new home. And that's all of a sudden you just live somewhere else. Really strange. Now, Cairo today has 10 million people, so it's a really big city. It's a very active life. Once we said fast-paced, a lot of things happening. But Cairo is very different from Frisco, believe it or not. The food, very different. The things you would learn in school, very different. The religions that people practice there, most very different. So it's a whole different culture, a whole different place to live in. And now you're expected to work there and go to school there. And life won't ever be the same again because Cairo is now your home forever. Really weird. But that's actually just Daniel's life. One day he was living in Israel. The next day, boom, he's in Babylon. And the rest of his life he spent there in Babylon. It's really strange. He's not living at home. He's living as an exile in somewhere it's very different. And so the book of Daniel takes place entirely in this place of exile. And this is Daniel's life. But the crazy thing about that is Daniel's faith actually grew over this time. I mean, how? How can you be taken from home, live somewhere completely different, but faith actually grows? Well, I mean, for Daniel, he just stayed fighting. He stayed resilient to that faith. He stayed grounded in what he knew. He stayed grounded in God every single step of the way, fighting for his faith in God. Because he knew the God that was with him at home was the God that came with him to exile. Daniel knew that God and would not settle for anything else, would not settle for anything less, would not settle for anything that claimed to be God. But Daniel knew it was just some cheap imitation. Daniel knew God and wanted God, period. Now, Daniel has been living this life in exile for a long time at this point in Daniel 6. He's been there for years. And so people are coming to know God because of the faith that they had. So much so that Daniel actually keeps on getting promoted, even though he got taken kind of as like a slave to this new place. He's now become like one of like the second or third in charge of command in his city. So much so that other people are jealous of him. And they're like, bro, we took this guy as a captive a few years ago. How is he ruling over us? No. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. And so here in Daniel chapter 6, we see this plot that gets hatched against Daniel. So Daniel chapter 6, starting in verse 4, it says, so these other administrators and high officers, they just decided to search for some fault in the way Daniel was handling the government affairs. But they couldn't find anything to even criticize or condemn because he was faithful. He was so responsible. He was completely trustworthy. So what do? They decide their only way forward, the only way they could possibly trap Daniel, is if they make a law that only applies to Daniel. It's a really weird plan, but as it goes on, Daniel's not going to give up on his faith. And so they basically say, well, let's just make it illegal for Daniel to have his faith and practice it. So that's exactly what they do. So here we see in verse 6 and 7, the administrators and the high officers, as people that were really jealous of Daniel, come to the king and say, long live King Darius. We're all in agreement. us administrators, officials, high officers, advisors, governors, blah, 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 that the king should make a law that will be strictly enforced. And this is like the most Karen move ever. Give orders that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into a den of lions. And so King Darius is like, all right, I guess. Cool, let's do it. I'll sign it. And so he signs it. But this is law. This is life. This is what happens living in Babylon. But in verse 10, we see Daniel being the guy that he's always been. Even though they signed this law, Daniel's like, cool, life changed for me, none right now. I don't care. I know God. I spend time with God every day in prayer. And I've done this for years now. This is the one thing that's keeping me sane. I'm not going back on that. And so here in verse 10, it says, when Daniel learned that this law had been signed, what does he do? He just goes home and knelt down, as usual, in his upstairs room, with his windows open towards Jerusalem, his home that he once had. And as he's always done, he prays 3 times a day, giving thanks to his God. Wow, nothing has changed. Shocker. For Daniel, life's like, cool, some guy signed a piece of paper. My life is affected? None. Because the truth is, it was affected? None. Like nothing has changed for Daniel. He still has the same life. He still has the same faith. And he knows that the God that he has faith in, this God he's obsessed with, this God, he's going to do whatever he can to get that time in with this God. That God is the God that he serves and no one else. And if anyone tries to take place of that God, Daniel's going to be like, you're an imitation. Like you're not near as good as what I know. It's kind of the same thing as thinking of, some of the things that we've missed out on because of the quarantine times. I think one thing that would be really interesting that I don't think anyone's really going to do, but everyone looks forward to graduating high school, right? You work for 13 years to get to this point. Well, let's say that instead of doing graduation in person, everyone just decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and log on, open up your Club Penguin accounts again, and we're just going to do graduation on Club Penguin. And so instead of graduating in person, with the real stuff, with real pictures, real memories, all that kind of stuff, you just click to walk across the stage for graduation. Yeah, see, that's not the same. That's a cheap imitation that's acting like it's graduation, but it's not really graduation, right? It's something that's totally different. And so Daniel in his life, he sees all these things that say, no, like I'm as good as God. I can provide. What? You need food? I have tons of food. Here you go. God gives daily bread. Cool. I'll give you a daily feast, whatever. But Daniel knows those things are all just cheap imitations, claiming to be what God gives him, claiming to be as faithful, claiming to be as good, when he knows those things are going to backstab him the first chance they get. And so we go on, we get the rest of the story. We know what happens. Verse 13, they go and they say, yes, we found Daniel. He was praying. And so they go, they arrest him. In verse 13, they come before the king and they said, that man Daniel, one of these captives from Judah, he's ignoring you and your law, which is it really king's law? No, they wrote it. They brought it to him. He signed it, whatever. But he's ignoring your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day. So hearing this, the king is really deeply troubled. In fact, he tried to think of a way to save Daniel. And he spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of his predicament. Because like I said, it's not like, the outer world hates us all. No, there's like a few that are just troublemakers, right? These jealous people, they're good for nothing. Like they're just trying to do these things to get Daniel in trouble for his faith. When in reality, most people like Daniel. They respect Daniel. They see his faith and they're like, oh, that's really cool. No, Daniel's living out his faith. He's showing these fruits of the Spirit that are coming from God. And that's fruit that everyone gets to enjoy. So people around Daniel, they're like, Daniel's joyful. He has peace. All those kind of things. Where do I get that? And Daniel's like, come experience God. You'll get all of it. You'll get exactly what I get. You'll never run out of it either. So people are excited to be around Daniel, except for those people that are jealous of him, right? So the king is one of those people. He's like, oof, I've seen that God do some incredible things, and I respect Daniel, but I guess I signed this law. I guess it is my law, so here we go. And so here we go in verse 15. In the evening, the men went together to the king and said, Your Majesty, you know that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no law that the king signs can be changed. And so finally the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. Like, he realizes he's in a trap. He's fallen for it. He's done. But the king looks at Daniel and says, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." And guess what? That's exactly what happens. We know the rest of the story. We know that the next morning the king goes there, sees that Daniel, he's fine. He says, "Your God saved you. That God saved you. These guys trapped you. These are your enemies. They're now my enemies. They're your God's enemies. Now they're going into the lion's den." So the people that tried to set up a trap on Daniel actually end up being the one that get killed in the lion's den. And Daniel comes out, and because of this faith that he has in God, that is not shaken, that's not moved, that does not give an inch of ground to anyone no matter what, that faith is what saves Daniel in the end. Because that's the faith he's been practicing every day. I mean, he goes and he prays 3 times a day, on his knees, 3 times a day praying. That kind of faith does not get moved, no matter the circumstances. And at the end of the day, a person who practices that faith, God's going to get the glory, period. That's it. God is going to get the glory. Someone who's that obsessed with Jesus, who would not give up on God and would just confess, no matter what, I have faith, I have faith, I have faith, period. That kind of faith is a story worth hearing. And that's the kind of faith that changes cultures, changes communities, it changes people's hearts, that they come to see and know God in the same way. Now, right now, over at Pressing Crest, I met a family this fall who, they're from Iran. And they moved here a few years ago, but the father actually had to stay in Iran, had to do some business type stuff there. But while he was there, their whole family came to faith. And they moved over here. And they've been going to church at Pressing Crest. But the father back home, he was arrested in Iran because of his faith. Like, literally put behind bars, and the charge was, "Well, you're a Christian." To which he said, "Yes, but why am I going to? It doesn't matter. He's just arrested." And so, like, to this day, he's behind bars in Iran because of his faith. And if he renounced his faith, gave up on his faith, all that kind of stuff, he'd be set free. But for him, he's like, that's not worth it. Like, I would have to be giving up on God, and I'm not going to give up on God. And no matter what happens, no matter what the end result is, like, God's going to be glorified. My faith is not going to be moved based on what's happening around me. And at the end of the day, God's going to be glorified in that. That's a faith that's resilient, because that's a faith that knows Jesus. Once you know Jesus and you've met Jesus, you won't want anything else the rest of your life. Nothing else can come into that place that Jesus has occupied. We have this faith in a God who holds a love greater than the power of death. So no matter what the world has to offer, no matter what the world throws at us, God's got our back. God's got our back. We don't have to be moved. When we confess a faith in a God that big, nothing can move us. We won't be moved by anything. That faith continues to grow and grow and grow every day. And man, it's just a breath of fresh air. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful life to live. But a kind of, sort of faith, like a halfway in, halfway out kind of faith, does not survive these attacks. You know, that kind of faith that chooses God on Sunday and at camp, but forgets about God the rest of the time, that kind of faith is not going to survive. When the attacks come, they'll cave immediately. They could choose God one day, choose something the other day. They'll just choose what's convenient. So when life gets crazy and trouble comes, pressure comes to you, you'll cave. And the sad thing is, that survey we looked at the start of class shows got a lot of people that claim to be Christians nowadays that, well, 40% of them just shut up and cave as soon as it's convenient. Millions and millions and millions of people. When it's convenient, I choose God, but I mean, most of the time, there's other stuff that's out there. Hello. Welcome to the world of digital Babylon. There's tons of options. God's one of the options. Sometimes he's a good option. Sometimes he's not. And there you go. That's the world that we live in. But like I said, that's not a faith that's going to survive. That's not a faith that gives honor and glory to God. And the life living in faith is a life that's worth living. Now, if you feel like this doesn't describe you, though, if you feel like you're not a person who craves God with everything, or you're not really a person that intimately knows Jesus and knows him really well, If you feel that way, just know that's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do, okay? Don't feel like your faith is broken or it's never existed or it's fake. Don't feel that way. Life is a journey, and growing in faith is just as normal as anything else in life. Because the truth is, and I'll tell you the truth here, I grew up in the church, and I really never read my Bible as a teenager. I did it sometimes, for a few days, and then would kind of put it down, and it would get dusty, and I'd find it a few months later and be like, oh yeah. And then life would go on, and then you go to Winterfest and be like, oh, great, faith, wonderful. And then it was like, for the next few months. And then summer would come, and camp was always a highlight. And then, and then Winterfest would roll. And it was just this cycle of being passive in my faith, not really caring about what God has to offer, not really caring about who Jesus is, who he claims to be, and certainly not caring to know that Jesus intimately, not caring to grow a hunger in God. Just never really thought about it. I don't know. Just didn't quite come up to the surface. And so the life that I lived in faith was really not a life that was worth living at all in that sense. Certainly not with faith, because the faith that I had really wasn't in anything that was so great. It was just kind of convenient. Like I said, it's one option of many. When it's a good option to choose, I'll choose it and enjoy it. But if there's other options, some days I'll choose those other options. That was what faith was all about for me for a long time. That was, really until I went into a community of people who are faithful believers, all of them displaying this really, really deep faith. And once I saw that living in so many different people, I said, I need that. That's what I want. And so someone asked me, okay, well, how often do you read your Bible? I was like, I don't. And he was like, so you want to know God, but you never interact with God? I don't understand how this is going to work for you. And so I said, well, I just don't enjoy reading. I just don't like it. And so eventually that night, I kind of sat down and said, well, I want to know God. I want to crave God more. I really want that. So I need to read and pray to get there and live in community with the church. How about I just start praying to God that I enjoy reading? I don't know. Maybe that's a good one, God says he hears, and if we ask, he gives it to us. So I think it would really help if I enjoyed reading. I don't know. And so that was my prayer over the next month. Dear God, I don't enjoy reading. Help me to enjoy it more. Help me to crave the Bible more. Amen. Which seems like a really weird thing to pray, but man, God was so excited to hear that prayer. And God was like, yes, absolutely. You need that for the journey. Let's do it. And so now I read all the time. You guys have known this about me, right? I mean, for the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, come look at my library. There's so many books in there. So many books in there. It's the life that I have now. It's because God heard my prayer and transformed me. He made me more into a disciple of him. It's all because I asked for something so simple, so seemingly strange, but it was what I needed. It's the same thing that we have to ask for today. God, I want to want you more. And I think all of us can say this about ourselves. It's that we don't really, really love and obsess over Jesus as much as we think we should. I don't know anyone that's ever said, yes, I have spent too much time in prayer, or I have spent too much of my life studying the Bible. Never met that person before. Never have met that person before. Because I think, truthfully, we all feel that there's more we can grow in our faith. And as we continue to grow in faith, as we continue to learn an obsession with Jesus, we have to keep pressing on towards that goal any way we can, any single way we can. So if you've never before felt that just perfect Jesus moment where everything just clicks, you feel it, you just feel good, your heart is in line, your head's in line, every part of your body just feels, this is right. This is so right. Well, I'd invite you to come join us. Join us as we do stuff this summer. Come to summer camp, okay? Come to summer camp. So many people that have found faith at summer camp. But experience Jesus for that first time, and you'll know it. You'll be like, I can never settle for anything less the rest of my life. But if you've already felt that moment before with Jesus, if you're just kind of inconsistent in faith and kind of usually I choose Jesus, but I get distracted. Or, like I have a certain time out of the year when I choose Jesus the most. Just continue to pray. Continue to come to God. It's our job to continue to grow in our hunger for God. See, now if I go a while without actually spending time in my Bible, spending real time there, spending real time in prayer, spending real time with my church, like my whole life just is off. And I feel it and I know it. Like I'm more annoyed by my family around me. When I drive, other drivers actually make me mad. I don't have like this passion for life. And so I had to say, okay, stop. When's the last time you really pursued Jesus? And usually it's been a few days or weeks. So I say, there's the problem. Everything else in life, shelve it. We're going to go do this, period. I go do it, and it's like my life starts over again. I can finally feel alive. I don't feel hollow inside. I feel like I'm so full. It's because the Spirit is growing within me. And Jesus talks about this life in John 15, 5 and 6. Either we have life in Jesus or we don't. This is Jesus talking. He's talking about, okay, there's this tree planted, and the tree's God. And Jesus says, yes, I'm the vine, but you people, you are the branches, right? So if you remain in me and I remain in you, then you'll produce a lot of fruit. Because apart from me, you'll do nothing, right? Because if you're a vine, if you're on the tree, cool, you can grow some fruit. But if you cut yourself off from the tree and you're just a vine that's laying on the ground, you're not going to grow anything. You're just going to shrivel up and die, right? So verse 6, anyone who doesn't remain in me is thrown away and useless. It withers. Those branches are gathered into a pile and they're burned, right? But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask for anything you want and it will be granted. This life that we have can be so beautiful, so good, so pure, so everything if we just remain connected to Jesus. And the moment we realize we're far off, we come right back to him. We come right back to him over and over and over and over again. And we find God right there waiting for us on the front porch, running to meet us as we come back to him. That's life as a resilient disciple. And it's step one is Jesus. Because if you don't love Jesus, if you're not obsessed with Jesus, the rest of this is just whatever. Because quite frankly, I don't care what kind of experience you have in our youth group, as long as you get to know Jesus intimately. Of course, I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I want you to have a good time while you're here. But if you don't get to know Jesus intimately while you're part of our group, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like what any of us are doing here. It can become some type of like weird social circle country club. And that's kind of pointless. Because memories will fade, life will change, but no matter what pit you end up in life, Jesus will be there with you. You'll find God. God will be right there with you, no matter what happens in life. So during this time, as we're together, let's just find Jesus. Each of us find Jesus together. And together get to know him more intimately, come to just crave, get hungry for God, and make ourselves hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. So that when any other thing is given to us, if it's not of God, we know it, we say, I don't want it. I need God. I need everything that he is. I know exactly what's that like. And I'm not giving up anything else. I want God. I know what that's like, and I will not settle for anything else. That's being a resilient disciple of Jesus. So now, it's time for a STYGIES against boredom update. Now, as you can see here, I'll show you the leaderboard. But the games are not yet over, okay? Games end tonight at 8. And there's a lot of points to still be had out there. Can you finish the weekly Bible study? Can you finish the weekly challenges? Things change overnight, right? And so even though right now there's still 8 hours left in the competition, a lot could change. So make sure to get your stuff in. And remember, keep your eyes on the prize. Because tomorrow, on our Zoom call, I will announce who our winners are, and I'll announce the winner of our drawing for the 3rd to 10th place. So make sure to get your stuff in. Have it in by 8. Continue to just make some memories, do some crazy stuff during this quarantine. And know that tomorrow at 4 on Zoom, it's going to be middle school and high school together. So tomorrow on Zoom at 4, middle school and high school together. As we're all together, that's when I'll announce who our winners are. And that's when we'll do the drawing for the 3rd to 10th place team that will also get the prize. So if your team is sitting there 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, boom, get that final push in. Make sure you get into the top 10 so that you can be eligible for our drawing, right? So that'll be tomorrow on Zoom at 4. It's going to be a good time. Of course, we'll give away pizza because we always give pizza away on Mondays. But you'll also find out who our winners are for the Styggies Against Boredom Games. So it's going to be a good time. Styggies Against Boredom Games. Be there or be square. So last thing, and we might have to play some sad music for this one. So, okay, thank you. What do dinosaurs, Uplift Summer Camp, and the High School Impact Mission Trip all have in common? Well, they're all extinct. That's right. We will not have Uplift in June or High School Mission Trip to Impact. Both were canceled this week. Now, this is sad news, but we're actually going to look at our schedule a little bit differently this summer. Okay, because first off, we're going to have summer, all right? No worries here on this end, all right? We are going to have summer, and it's going to be a great summer. We're going to make great memories, and we're going to get to intimately know Jesus, and that's what I'm most excited about. But to create those experiences, to create those opportunities, now we're looking at June, which, is the summer, and our June schedule is completely open. Now, you could say, oh, it's so empty, that's sad. No, my friends. This is a blank canvas. We now have June completely, entirely open. We're going to treat it as if, well, we've never planned anything for June before, so let's go ahead and get some planning done for it. So a lot of options are now on the table. A lot of options are being considered. Now, we're going to have to be wise about things. We're going to have to be smart about things. We're going to have to make sure we're following certain guidelines. We're going to have to make sure it's wise to do the things that we do or take trips that we're going to try to take, experience some things we're going to try to experience. But know that we're not going to be passive. We're not going to sit back. We're not going to stay at home just by ourselves all summer long like we've done for the last few months, right? Listen, some of you saw my resume when I applied for this job, and I put my minor in outdoor leadership on that resume. Now, a lot of people saw that and said, oh, a minor in outdoor leadership. What is even that? Like, why would he put that on here? Like, might as well tell us he can ride a bicycle or something. I don't know, something stupid. Like, this is dumb. No, thank you. Because right now, that minor in outdoor leadership is coming in handy. Because on that, I got certified to lead backpack trips. I got certified in first aid wilderness. I got certified as a lifeguard. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happened getting that minor that helped me prepare for what our June could look like. So who knows? Maybe we'll take the Styggies camping. Sounds like a good time to me. Although I'm sure some of you have never really been camping outdoors in the woods before. That's okay. It's the first time for everything. And quite honestly, I can't wait to take you, some of you, especially more than others, just to see what Frisco is like when it gets out there into the woods. So it's going to be a good time. I'm still very excited for June. We're going to fill up that schedule. We're going to do a lot of stuff together. And we're just going to finally have that breakthrough moment where quarantines in the past and lives, they're before us. Lives are here. We're going to live. We're going to experience Jesus, and it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited for the summer. But I'll let you know the things that have to change, and we'll continue to be really wise and monitor the situation, go over things, see what we can do or can't do. We're going to be smart with that, but we're not going to be passive. We're not going to sit back. We're going to do stuff, and it's going to be a really fun summer. I'm really excited for what's ahead, but I'm even more excited for what Jesus is going to do among us this summer. It's almost here, so guys, finish strong. Finish school strong. You can do it. I believe in you. And I love you so very much, and I'll see you soon. So Styggies, goodbye.